Welcome to the Hodja on Architecture podcast. The Architecture of the Myth, Chapter 2, Vertical Power, Sky, Earth, and Authority. In the previous chapter, we witnessed the birth of spatial order, the movement from chaos to cosmos, from undifferentiated openness to structured distinction. Surface appeared, depth emerged, enclosure formed. But once vertical separation is established, once there is an above and a below, a new question inevitably arises: who occupies the height? The moment orientation is introduced, position becomes meaningful. And once a position becomes meaningful, it becomes contested. The division between sky and earth is not merely geometric, it is symbolic. When Uranus stretches above Gaia, the cosmos acquires a vertical axis, but that axis does not remain neutral for long. Height begins to imply transcendence. Elevation begins to suggest superiority. The sky does not simply exist above the earth, it presides over it. It oversees, it covers, it frames. The very act of being above creates the possibility of surveillance, of seeing without being equally seen. Verticality, from its earliest mythic articulation, is tied to authority. This is not accidental. Human perception associates height with distance, and distance with control. The one who sees from above sees more. The one who stands higher appears larger. Perspective itself privileges elevation. Even before architecture formalizes these intuitions into towers and platforms, mythology encodes them. The sky becomes a domain of dominance, the earth becomes the realm of containment, the section becomes a structure of power. Uranus's domination of Gaia is spatial before it is political. He covers her, he encloses her, he restricts what emerges from below. In myth, spatial control precedes governance. Authority is first expressed through position. The one who occupies the upper plane controls the conditions under which something can rise. Power begins not with law, but with placement. Perhaps this is why so many civilizations build upwards when they wish to signify power. Sacred mountains, pyramids, acropolises, cathedral spires all repeat the same gesture. Elevation becomes declaration. To rise is to rule. The summit is never accidental. It is intentional, symbolic, and curated. It demands effort to reach, and that effort reinforces hierarchy. And we have never quite abandoned this instinct. Modern skylines continue the mythic script. Corporate towers compete not merely for rentable square meters, but for altitude. The tallest building in a city is rarely anonymous. Height becomes branding, height becomes confidence, height becomes proof. We may speak the language of engineering efficiency and structural optimization, but the symbolic dimension remains stubbornly vertical. The skyline is a contemporary Olympus, its glass facades reflecting not divinity, but capital. Vertical arrangement becomes a political arrangement. The ancient Greeks would later imagine the gods residing on Mount Olympus, not in valleys, not at sea level, but at the summit. The highest point becomes the most sacred point. Access is limited. Visibility is controlled. Proximity to height becomes proximity to divinity, and divinity, conveniently, remains out of reach. The spatial logic is unmistakable. Authority occupies elevation. This logic filters down into urban form. Acropolises are placed on hills, deliberately detached from the everyday terrain of the city below. Temples are raised on stylobates, their steps creating ritual ascent. Thrones sit upon platforms. Even in secular contexts, leaders address crowds from stages. The body elevated above others acquires symbolic amplification. Architecture stages authority through difference in level. Architecture does not invent this logic, it materializes it. What begins as myth becomes a built environment. The vertical axis becomes institutionalized. The above-below relationship transforms into center-periphery, ruler-subject, sacred-profane. Spatial hierarchies translate into social hierarchies. Once embedded in stone, hierarchy appears natural, as though elevation were destiny rather than design. But vertical power is not only about domination, it is also about aspiration. Height promises transcendence. To climb is to approach something higher, morally, spiritually, intellectually. Pilgrimage routes ascend mountains. Universities are often built on hills. Even in metaphor, we speak of high ideals, higher education, lofty ambitions. Our vocabulary betrays our spatial imagination. Language itself preserves vertical hierarchy. Myth understood this long before policy documents did. Yet verticality is inherently unstable. What rises can fall. Uranus himself is overthrown. The sky is separated from the earth. authority shifts, power relocates. The vertical axis remains, but its occupant changes. The structure survives the ruler. The diagram endures. This is crucial. The structure of hierarchy survives even when rulers do not. Architecture, once established, outlives its first users. The symbolic framework persists. The myth is not about one god dominating forever. It is about the endurance of vertical order itself. Remove Uranus, and another figure will occupy the upper plane. Replace the deity with an institution, the institution with a corporation, the corporation with a brand. The altitude remains desirable. Perhaps what we call revolution is often just a change of tenants at the top. The Sky-Earth division sets the stage for Olympus. Olympus sets the stage for institutionalized hierarchy. An institutionalized hierarchy sets the stage for cities organized around axes, centers, and elevations. Master plans inherit mythology. Zoning inherits cosmology. Even the diagram of a capital city, with its parliament elevated and its ceremonial axis extended, quietly echoes that first vertical separation. In contemporary discourse, we frequently celebrate horizontality, collaborative networks, flattened hierarchies, open systems. Yet our built environments continue to betray vertical instincts. Headquarters rise. Penthouse apartments command premiums. Observation decks promise perspective, and perspective remains a privilege. We may advocate equality in theory, but we continue to sell altitude in practice. We may speak of equality, but we continue to design inequality. Vertical power, then, is not a relic of myth. It is a persistent spatial condition. The moment the cosmos was divided into above and below, a grammar of authority was born. Architecture did not invent that grammar, but it continues to speak it fluently. The sky was never just sky. It was a position, and position, once established, becomes a claim. In the next chapter, we will move from abstract verticality to a specific elevation, Mount Olympus itself, and examine how height becomes institutionalized as divine architecture. Because once authority claims the summit, it must also construct a dwelling there, and every dwelling reveals a system. This concludes Chapter 2 of the Architecture of the Myth: Vertical Power, Sky, Earth, and Authority. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode.